Hi everybody, welcome back to Not Another Tooling podcast with myself, Austin Pearson, and my wonderful co-host, Mr. Matt Malcolm. How are you doing today, Matt?
I am doing good. I'm just trying to balance the time and then it's about to fall over. I'm doing good. I feel good. For a myriad of reasons.
I heard you're doing some pretty crazy challenge at the moment to keep yourself fit and getting some good practice. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. Mental toughness, let's call it. Yeah, I've done it before. Not really talking too much about it on social media these days. I think I did before because I was in that hype. But I figured if anyone wants to do it and they want to do anything, they'll find it, they'll do it. I see a few people on LinkedIn who are posting about it and things, and I commend them because it's not a straightforward activity. But this time I'm kind of doing it like a little bit in silence. I remember last year when I was going through it, I'd be doing my morning walks and stuff, and I'd be recording and I'd be trying to give it the big one around the positivity of doing it. But then I just thought, no one gives a shit. I'll just carry on and crack on myself.
Do you know what? It's really good, and I feel like that could be a good topic for a future episode because it's can be quite a draining job in IT operations, and developing some mental toughness and being able to deal with that stuff could be fun. So anyway, today we are going to talk about automation, which I know you are very passionate about at the moment. As am I, probably in a slightly different way to you. So do you want to kick off with tell me what's I guess resonating for you in the world of automation at the moment?
So I suppose the main point at the moment is automation. Even now, it's a bit different depending on how solutions are architected and things like that, but it still feels like it's considered a fairly advanced position. And just to demystify, when we're talking about automation, it's the full stack. It's anything from the infrastructure through to the app, through to the processes, through to the workflow, like everything associated to running an IT organization. Like what we're talking about with automation, obviously we're talking about some core products and functions, but anything in that stack, not just, I guess historically we're thinking about an infrastructure automation or orchestration product. We're talking about the full stack here. But the main bugbear, and I think there's a way to mitigate and a way to move past it, is expecting it's this massively maturing beast that you can't get to until so many things and so much time and so much maturity has taken place. Actually, just getting automation started sooner rather than later will dramatically change the playing field for a lot of organizations. But yeah, that's the gripe, if any, which don't have too many of those, but that's what it will be today.
And I remember you bringing this up in our top 5 things for that IT operations teams could do today to get moving, is not to build a huge, great big beast of a automation project, but just to do something. And so have you got any examples of that where you're seeing like people are doing a little thing and it's making a big difference?
I mean, yeah, we'll get into the weeds on a couple of these, but let's say one of the most basic ones I've seen and massively mitigated by just doing a simple step. And this is not doing any funky automation outside with multiple products. It'll be doing some basic automated workflows within a single ITSM tool for this particular use case. There's a use case where I'm sitting with a service desk agent and they're logging the call. I'm just monitoring, seeing what's going on, seeing how the activity is going, seeing what can be improved. And 3 calls in a row, they're copying some information, a worded structure template, and then they're copy and pasting it twice within the process of this call. There was some other stuff identified in it as well, but these things were more advanced than this basic activity was call comes in, copy this information in this template, type all the information in, and then copy it again into another section of the ticket. That was like what it was doing for every single ticket. So when I'm talking automation, I'm not talking about all the sexy stuff, right? The very simple activity there, these extra 10, 20, 30 seconds per ticket. These guys are logging 30, 40, 50 a day, right? They're really churning them out. Massive saving by just automating the population of that data. And this was free text information, which is no good for us all reporting people. Why don't we put it into fields so we can use it, categorizations or other? But the slight change of having the step of categorizing the ticket, automatically populating the data, so there wasn't copy pasting through all of it, massively change the process flow and reduce time. Legitimate, it's very simple ask, very simple activity. But yeah, that's a very crude, basic example. Automation isn't the shiny dancing things it can be. Of course it can be. But these little bits of automation, we've got a long way.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, because what I've seen is, weirdly, even though automation is using an IT tool or a tech tool to do something, actually IT are the department that haven't really adopted this stuff compared to the business. 2 years ago, RPA was just huge and everybody was just diving into this. What have we got? What are you doing, secretary, that we could we could automate? Boom, boom, boom. And RPA vendors were like retiring. Just the money was just coming in all over the show, right?
Legitimately as well.
In IT, going, all right, that's happened in the business, and the only thing that we really automate is clicking buttons to do VM builds or something like that, depending where you are, because there are still plenty of people that still do that manually. But it's really interesting, and that's definitely a bit of a theme, I think, because I think we saw the same with AI and machine learning, right? It's the business adopt it, and then IT are about a bit behind. It's interesting, because you'd think it'd be the opposite way around. In this case, if you applied automation in IT and then you learnt about it, then when you took it to the business, actually you've got some experience of what to do, what not to do, and you could be much more successful rather than the other way around. But never seems to work that way. Apologies, I've got slightly off track there.
No. I mean, as you're speaking there, I'm just asking, like, in my own head, like, why would that be the case? Why would it be the case where the technology enabled function with all the bells and whistles, and the bells and whistles are still just stuff within core products, as well as introducing like third-party RPAs, etc. Why would the business be driving automation more so than the tech teams themselves? Like, what is the state or issue with that culture if the team that are best equipped to deliver that kind of capability are not delivering it? I know what the answer is. This is an open question, maybe to yourself, maybe to the viewers, right? Or 6 of them. Thank you. But ultimately, like, why? What is that? Why?
It's interesting. I think what I've experienced is, in the business, they have a pretty direct line to funding. So if you were a CFO and somebody came and said, okay, great, I can take X% out of your pool of people because we can automate this, they'd be like, great, let's do it. Or I can improve your customer experience, Mr. CRO, and therefore you'll have less churn by doing X and Y sort of thing, and that's great. Whereas in IT, budgets are pretty fixed already. It's quite hard to go and look at budget. You've already got 50 million things you're going to spend it on, and some of this stuff is just way down the track. Really, people just don't think about it, but it is interesting, because it's a conversation I have with customers on a daily basis, and because everybody is talking about my least favorite word, observability, at the moment.
So I still can't say the word. Yeah, I'll try.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little bit sick when I say it, to be honest. But at the end of the day, when you go back to the business doesn't care about that stuff. They care about being able to fix things proactively, and that's where automation is just such a great thing. And I kind of see a lot of people kind of back in the tool space going, oh great, we should buy another tool then, and we should start writing our own automations and things like that. But back to your example, you've already got tools in your organization that have the capability to turn on some of that automation and do it, and you could just do this stuff. It really simple. I remember a really simple example. I've probably got a couple, but the first one that springs to mind is Microsoft doing firewall updates for Office 365 twice a year, and people going, oh, right, that's a pain. You know, I'm a service provider. I've got 700 clients. I've got to do 700 firewall updates twice a year for this. You go, no, just do it once, automate it, roll it out to the rest. Why wouldn't you do that? And I'm like, oh yeah, why wouldn't we do it? Oh, amazing. It's crazy. And things like Windows service restarts or whatever, you've already got that are there, right? And somebody runs them eventually after they've got it to the right team and blah, 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 blah. And then they click the button and you go, oh, you could have put that in pretty early with the right caveats, right? You don't want to do a Windows service restart on every server when something goes wrong. But in certain scenarios, you're like, the script's going to get run. Why not just fire it off to be run in the first place? And if it fixes the problem, happy days. Sorry, I got on my soapbox there a little bit.
No. Please do get on it. I think I want to talk about maybe some of the parts or capabilities of automation, but just coming back to the comment you made earlier on, like it's a spend. We've got to spend some money for a new product or whatever else, or why the business is doing it versus the technology team. And I know we keep talking about it. God, we do keep talking about it, but that disconnect between the business outcome and the enablers, be it the technology or whatever else, if that was much clearer, then it wouldn't necessarily be a budget question. It would be, we have this business objective, and then we filter those requirements down to see where they can be enabled. And almost by default, the business requirements here should get to the folks who are best positioned to enable it. So they're on the right page to do it. The funding should be less of an issue, because if we're going to do something in the tooling space, certainly what I try and strive for is it should ultimately get to a cost neutral position. That's otherwise, what is the point? You know, it makes no sense. So a cost neutral position is the target to be in. So yes, there is going to be some spend, but it should be considered an investment for the business outcome. But those two things is a case of the connecting of the business outcome to the enablers. That I think would help close this gap that we see, and we still see it now, of course we do, right? And then also not considering it extra money to spend, but considering it wise investments to make for the gain of X, Y, Z down the line.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because there's so much wasted time. It's ridiculous. I mean, certainly in the situations I generally talk about, there's about 40% of level 1, level 2 activities that could easily be automated. And when you add up the cost of software to do that and implementing whatever versus the people that you're paying or the outsourcers you're paying to do that, is an absolute no-brainer. Really is.
Absolutely.
Right, so you want to come back to something.
What we automating? Yeah, what are we automating? If people are going to try and do some automation and they're not going to blow the load on a super expensive project, like what could people be doing now? And I guess the stuff we're going to talk about now, none of this stuff's like new, right? This is just our thoughts, experiences of how we've seen and how we foresee automation can be implemented in a, I'll call it a crude way. You know, I'm not necessarily fully including all of the shiny products, but what an organization could do today, I mentioned an example of just adding in some automated categorization, I suppose, within ITSM products, but like what else in terms of basic levels of automation? We talked about server restarts. That was always a good story, wasn't it? We look at the monitoring tool, spots the services down. Well, we'll auto restart it. It's something as simple as that was a massive use case. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, the rules and constraints around when to restart versus not, and these ones and that one, and all that kind of good stuff. But the notion of restarting the service is such a trivial activity, but how often nobody goes beyond that too far? They don't say, well, actually, it's not just a restart. We also need to grab this file and move it here. And when we've done that, we need to check this cache. And when we've done that, we need to implement this patch. Like that's the fix. The multi-step activity rarely will be implemented, even though we're going back through a decade of products that we've used. These functionality was available then. We could do some very complicated automated flow, including the raising of the service management stuff, instant, the problem, the change, all that good stuff. But still not massively done.
Yeah.
Culture problem, surely. Like why wouldn't we just automate the shit out of everything within reason?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because it causes us so many headaches, right? The number of incidents that go to somebody, and by the time they get to look at them, the state of that device that they were going to investigate has changed, and therefore they end up closing it as not no fault found, or they're trying to go back in monitoring tools for 2 hours and what was going on, blah 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 blah, and you go like, well, why didn't you just grab the top 10 busiest running processes, using a script at the time of the event, and attach it to the ticket, and then you go, oh, I see what was happening at that time, great. Or the top 10 biggest files on a Windows server, how many disk file issues do we get, right? Just such a simple thing that you could just grab at the time of the event and attach to the ticket, and then somebody go, oh, I see what was happening at the time, boom, away we go. Save myself 15 minutes of triage time every single incident. There are some that are more complex, right? Because vendors make it complex, like the world of networking. Yeah, you're going to ping a device, run a trace route. They can be automated, but things like OSPF queries are not just different for every vendor, but they're different for every type of device in that vendor. So that's a little bit harder to do. But even if you just did ping and trace route automation, that's half of it. And away you go. But still, the other bits can be done, for sure. It's just loads and loads of this stuff that's just so simple, that we don't do because we don't know any different. I think it's like we're still stuck 20 years ago with our thinking about how we run IT operations.
Yeah, stuck is like a good word. I suppose any difference where it's much more advanced is the organizations are already in the position where they're creating their own applications, own services, immutable software, microservices infrastructure, where these things, they need to be built for automation because of the nature of what they are and how they are. Still, degrees of automation could be overlaid, I'm very sure, but that's where there's much more advanced stakes, certainly in the infrastructure and application space. Business process and services still pretty much in the same position, but there's a much more advanced state over in that, say, new world, current world these days, I suppose. But there's still so much debt in our world that people aren't doing those things still.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the final thing I wanted to say was, and I'm going to bang this drum again, is when you're thinking about this, go have a look at your incident data or go just talk to people on the service desk, right? Go sit down with some people.
Pretty powerful, that is, just sitting down and watching people. So powerful. Who does it though? Not many.
No, indeed, yeah. Because in that you'll find, as per your example originally, here's what people are actually doing that we could easily automate. Or looking through the incident data, you'll find the same thing. You find that 20% of incidents were fixed by a service restart, and away you go. And you pick that rather than picking what you think you should do because it's been on fire the last couple of weeks, or one of your vendors is put a flashy video up and gone, hey, look, you could do this, and you go, oh, that's a great idea, and then you find that actually only one person does that every 3 months. You implemented this automation that was useless.
I've got a slight extension of that. So incident space is like more bread and butter. Go look at that space. If something's there happening enough, go automate the fixing of it. Yeah, cool. The immediate next step, which happens more than it would do an incident, is the automation of service requests. So go see what you've got, what is in your service catalog, and anything that's in there, a good proportion of it, minus the consideration for approval workflows, even though some of those should be automated. There's a good space of activity that can be automated in the request process. But the bit that doesn't get looked at, I find this like still now, look at the changes. Go look at the changes that take place. Look at the changes, look at the breakdown of what happens in the changes. Look at the individuals who are involved, the different teams, the flow of activity. I guarantee there's going to be diamonds in the change management data that allow you to automate a lot. And most of the time, not all of it, but most of the time, the people that are doing the changes are often more advanced than your level 1, level 2 people a lot of the time. So you go and automate the stuff and the changes, boom, you've got a massive capacity or increased capacity for the folks who can go and do other stuff, deal with those P1s, P2s, rather than dealing with all the noise of change.
I agree. And I think we're going to do a whole probably mini series on things like change management and some of the ITIL processes, because there's a lot we could get into there, which is cool. Right. So summing up, today we've talked about automation. You kicked off that it's still seen as quite an advanced thing, and that everybody is expecting to build this huge big automation beast, and actually you could start really simple. You gave a great example of a service desk agent who was copying and pasting info twice into every ticket. That could be really simply sorted. We talked about the business being ahead of IT in automation. They've already been on a fairly advanced journey with RPA, for example, before IT, and there's this kind of disconnect that we often find between, you know, what are the business outcomes and what are we trying to achieve in IT, and how could we get to at least a cost neutral position. I think definitely a cost improvement position. Most of the people I talk to take a fair amount out of level 1 and level 2 support. Then we talked about what we're automating, and you know, can be really, really simple stuff, from service restarts, top 10 files on a Windows server, all that sort of thing. And the place to start is, we gave 3 good examples. Go sit with some service desk agents is a great way to do it. See what they're actually doing, or look at things like your incident data or your service catalog request or the changes that you've had, and pick out things that are happening on a regular basis that you can automate, not one-off stuff that's big and complicated. Just pick the easy stuff. Fair summary?
Yeah, I want to say something else, but let's just wait for the process one, I think.
Okay, awesome, wonderful. I look forward to the process one. Thank you very much. How far have you walked today?
Right now it's 3,000 steps, but I know it'll probably be a few thousand. Yesterday, I didn't even mean to, I did 17 miles.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, a lot of meetings.
I'm feeling lazy, and I got up at 5:30 to go to CrossFit. So crazy. Right, thank you very much, Matt. That was informative as ever. If you listeners have got any thoughts about automation, anything you want to challenge us on, or anything you want to hear a bit more about, then just drop either one of us a message or leave a comment below, and we will be sure to include it in a future episode. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.
See you later.